Raise a glass, let the worry slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for today. There's Troy laughing with his gin and a grin, telling stories about where he's been. Boomer's got whiskey, he's loosening his tie, chasing dreams under a midday sky. The bartender knows us, he's mixing with flair. Every sip's a moment we're happy to share. Liquid lunch, pour it smooth, let it flow. Friends round the table where the good times grow. Raise a glass, let the worry slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for today. The clock don't matter, we're lost in the vibe. Jazz in the air, feel the soul come alive. From martinis to bourbon, we're riding the wave. Stealing this hour, it's the freedom we crave. Sun's still shining, but we're in our zone. This bar's our shelter, our temporary home. One more round before the world calls us back. Savor the moment, keep the blues in the rack. We'll laugh and we'll toast till the afternoon fades. Memories made in these liquid escapades. Liquid lunch, pour it smooth, let it flow. Friends round the table where the good times grow. Raise a glass, let the worry slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for today. So here's to the daylight, the drinks and the fun. Our liquid lunch, till the next one comes. With a wink and a smile, we'll be back real soon. Chasing that jazz under the high noon.
I am so sorry. I did it again. I've got to quit hitting that. You know what? I'm going to go all the way back. I'm going to take my time and say hello to everyone all over again. Starting with my beautiful wife of Netters Network. I love you too, sweetheart. My oft times partner in crime, Big Al Presents. He says, enjoy your liquid lunch, my friends. Thank you so much. Mark says, Mech po, bring on the gach, rokeg blood pie, stuffed tobaj legs, and fresh pipius claw, kapla. Those are all dishes that I've actually made in real life for get-togethers at my house. So he knows of what he speaks. Welcome, black and ugly as ever. I will take you at your word on that, though I am going to somewhat doubt the veracity of the ugly claim. I don't believe that to be true, especially as we get into the topic for today. Welcome, Matanui. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Carton pushes communications officer out of an airlock. Yeah, well, considering I am the communications officer and the engineer and everything else on this particular show, that's my fault. That is my fault. But there we go. So last night, if you joined us over on Deleted Scenes channel, we did a rewatch of David Lynch's The Elephant Man. And I promised, and I think I did a decent job, to curtail my natural inclination to talk about the differences between real world history and the poetic license of Hollywood. I only mentioned it in a couple of places where I felt that it was particularly of interest at the time. There's a great deal of tension that is built by the movie that I felt needed to be addressed by the actual history. But I'm going to get more into that today, not speaking so much about the movie last night so much as I will be the real person in Joseph Merrick. The name, for one thing, is Joseph Merrick. The film refers to him throughout as John Merrick, and I will explain where that misapprehension about his name originated. Welcome, FKHC 2005, whom we lovingly refer to as Tim. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. So let me go ahead and get right into it. And I will say hi. I will stop and say hi to people as they come in, because honestly, you folks are what's really important here, more than anything else I have to talk about today. So Joseph Cary Merrick was born on the 5th of August in 1862 at 50 Lee Street in Leicester. To Joseph, obviously named for his father, Joseph Rockley Merrick, and his wife, Mary Lane, maiden name Potterton. Joseph Rockley Merrick, who died in 1897, was the son of London-born weaver Barnabas Merrick, who moved to Leicester during the 1820s to 30s, and his third wife, Sarah Rockley. Mary Jane Potterton was born in Evington in Leicestershire, was the daughter of William Potterton, who was described as an agricultural laborer in the 1951 census on Thurmaston, Lancashire. As a young woman, she worked as a domestic servant in Lancashire before marrying Joseph Merrick, who at the time was a warehouseman. Merrick was apparently healthy at birth. This is, of course, Joseph Merrick, the younger, the subject of our discussion today. And he had no outward anatomical signs or symptoms of any disorder for the first few years of his life. Named after his father, he was given the middle name Cary by his mother, a Baptist, after the preacher William Carey. The Merricks had two other children, William Arthur, born January of 1866, who died of scarlet fever on the 21st of December of 1870, and was buried on Christmas Day, 1870. And Marion Eliza, born 28 September 1867, who had physical disabilities and died of myelitis and seizures on 19 March 1891 at the age of 23. William is buried with his mother, aunts, and uncles in Welford Rock Cemetery in Lancashire. Marion is buried with her father in the Belgrave Cemetery in Lancashire. Now, there's a reason that I bothered to go through the entire family, because it does have a bearing on the name issue. Mary Jane's gravestone wrongly indicates that she had 4 children. It was originally understood that John Thomas Merrick, born the 21st of April, 1864, who died of smallpox on the 24th of July of the same year, was the 4th child of Joseph and Mary Jane Merrick, but the GRO birth records indicate that she was, in fact, not related to them. Some believe that it is this John Merrick that was confused with Joseph, the so-called Elephant Man. A pamphlet titled The Autobiography of Joseph Carey Merrick, produced somewhere around 1884 to accompany his exhibition, states that he began to display anatomical signs at approximately 5 years of age, with thick, lumpy skin like that of an elephant and almost the same color. According to a 1930 article in the Illustrated Lancashire Chronicle, he began to develop swellings on his lips at the age of 21 months, followed by a bony lump on his forehead and a loosening and roughening of his skin. As he grew, a noticeable difference between the size of his left and right arms appeared, and both of his feet became significantly enlarged. The Merrick family explained his symptoms as the result of Mary Jane being knocked over and frightened by a fairground elephant while she was pregnant with him. The concept of a maternal impression, that of emotional experience of pregnant women, that they could have a long-lasting physical effect on their unborn children, was still common in the 19th century in Britain. Merrick held this belief about the cause of his disability throughout his life. Of course, there is no scientific basis for such a thing. If there had been a physical trauma prenatally, it would have manifested at birth. In addition to the deformities, Merrick fell and damaged his left hip at some point during his childhood. The injury site became infected and left him permanently disabled. Although limited by his physical deformities, Merrick attended school and enjoyed a close relationship with his mother. She was a Sunday school teacher, and his father worked as an engineer driver at a cotton factory, as well as running a haberdashery business. Mary Jane Merrick died from bronchopneumonia on the 29th of May, 1873, 2.5 years after the birth of her youngest son, William. Joseph Rocky Merrick moved his 2 surviving children to live with Mrs. Emma Wood Antill, a widow with children of her own. They married on the 3rd of December, 1874. It was taught. This is an excerpt from the autobiography of Joseph Merrick. I was taunted and sneered at so that I would not go home to my meals, and used to stay in the street with a hungry belly rather than return for anything to eat. What few half meals I did have, I was taunted with the remark, "That's more than you have earned." Merrick left school at the age of 13, which was usual for the time. His home life was now a perfect misery, in quotes. And neither his father nor his stepmother demonstrated affection towards him. He ran away 2 or 3 times, but was taken back by his father each time. At 13, he found work rolling cigars in a factory, but after 3 years, the deformity of his right hand worsened to the extent that he no longer had the dexterity required for the job. Now unemployed, he spent his days wandering the streets, looking for work, avoiding his stepmother's taunts. As Merrick was, I just got to say, the whole wicked stepmother trope sometimes has a basis in reality, right? As Merrick was becoming a greater financial burden on his family, his father eventually secured him a hawker's license, enabling him to earn money selling items from the haberdashery shop door to door. His endeavor was unsuccessful because Merrick's facial deformities rendered his speech increasingly unintelligible, and prospective customers reacted with horror to his physical appearance. People refused to open the door to him, and they not only stared at him, but followed him out of curiosity. Merrick failed to make enough money as a hawker to support himself. On returning home one day in 1877, he was severely beaten by his father, and he left home for good. Let's see what Tim has to say here. He says, only thing that is buried is in the soft tissue, only the bone, only things that is buried, is the soft tissue. Only the bones at the Royal London Hospital, which are kept away from people. I believe what you're saying is any grave that he has does not contain his bones because they are kept on display at the hospital. Yes, you are absolutely right about that. Yes, medical students do have access to them. I do believe it was also rumored that Michael Jackson made an attempt to purchase those bones, and to the best of my knowledge, that did not actually come to fruition. Probably for the best. Merrick, now homeless on the streets of Leicester, was now homeless on the streets of Leicester. His uncle, a barber named Charles Merrick, on hearing of his nephew's situation, sought him out and offered him accommodations in his home. Merrick continued to hawk around Leicester for the next 2 years, but his efforts to earn living met with little more success than before. Eventually, his disfigurement drew such negative attention from members of the public that the commissioners for hackney carriages withdrew his license when it came up for renewal. With young children to provide for, Charles could no longer afford to support his nephew. In late December of 1879, now at 17 years old, Merrick entered the Leicester Union Workhouse. One of 1,180 residents of the workhouse, Merrick was given a classification to determine his place of accommodation. The class system specified the department or ward in which a resident would reside, as well as the amount of food received. Merrick was classified as Class 1 for the able-bodied people. On the 22nd of March, 1880, only 12 weeks after entering the workhouse, Merrick signed himself out and spent 2 days looking for work. With no more success than before, he found himself with no option but to return to the workhouse. This time, he stayed for 4 years. Around 1882, Merrick underwent surgery on his face. The protrusion from his mouth had grown to 20 to 22 centimeters, severely inhibiting his speech and making it difficult to eat. The operation was performed in the workhouse infirmary under the direction of a Dr. Clement Frederick Bryan, during which a large part of the mass was removed. Let's see. Merrick concluded that, in reference to what I had said before about Michael Jackson trying to buy the bones of the Elephant Man, hopefully the letter they sent back to Jackson said, "Eat it." Probably not, because that may have actually been his plan. I am not entirely certain. Merrick concluded that his only escape from the workhouse might be through the world of human novelty exhibition. He wrote a speculative letter to Sam Torr, a Leicester music hall comedian and proprietor that he knew. Torr came to visit Merrick at the workhouse and decided he could make money exhibiting him, although to retain Merrick's novelty value, he would need to be put on display as a traveling exhibit. To this end, Torr organized a group of managers for his new charge. Music hall proprietor Jay Ellis, traveling showman George Hitchcock, a fair owner Sam Roper. On the 3rd of August, my anniversary, 1884, Merrick departed the workhouse to start his new career. The showman named Merrick the Elephant Man and advertised him as half a man, half an elephant. They showed him around the East Midlands, including in Leicester and Nottingham, before moving him to London for the winter season. Hitchcock contacted an acquaintance, showman Tom Norman, who ran penny gaff shops in the East End of London exhibiting human curiosities. Without the need for a meeting, Norman agreed to take over Merrick's management, and Merrick traveled with Hitchcock to London in November of 1884. When Norman first encountered Merrick, he was dismayed by the extent of his deformities, fearing his appearance might be too horrific to be a successful novelty. Nevertheless, he exhibited Merrick in the back of an empty shop on Whitechapel Road. By the way, that shop still exists today, where they sell saris. Just a little piece of trivia there. Merrick slept on an iron bed with a curtain drawn around to afford him some privacy. Observing Merrick asleep one morning, Norman learned that he always slept sitting up, with his legs drawn up and his head resting on his knees. His enlarged head was too heavy to allow him sleep lying down, and as Merrick put it, he would risk waking with a broken neck. I'm sure that was intended humorously, because you don't wake when you have a broken neck. Norman decorated the shop with posters that Hitchcock had produced depicting a monstrous half-man, half-elephant. A pamphlet was created titled The Autobiography of Joseph Carey Merrick, giving an outline of Merrick's life to date. The brief biography, whether written by Merrick or not, provided a generally accurate account of his life. It did contain an incorrect date of birth, but Merrick was always vague about when exactly he was born. Norman gathered an audience by standing outside the shop and attracting passers-by with his showman patter. He would then lead the assembled crowd into the shop, explain that the Elephant Man was not here to frighten you, but to enlighten you. Pulling the curtain to one side, he allowed the onlookers, often visibly horrified, to observe Merrick up close, while describing the circumstances that had led to his present conditions, including his mother's alleged incident with the fairground elephant. The Elephant Man exhibit was moderately successful and made money primarily from the sales of the autobiographical pamphlet. Merrick was able to put his share of the profits aside in the hopes of earning enough money to one day buy a home of his own. The shop on Whitechapel Road was directly opposite the London Hospital, ideally situated for the medical students and doctors to visit, curious to see Merrick. One such visitor was a young house surgeon named Reginald Tuckett, who, like his colleagues, was intrigued by the Elephant Man's deformities. Tuckett suggested his senior colleague, Frederick Treves, should pay Merrick a visit. Real quick, want to welcome Real Wave Nation Gaming Clips. I got Darth Jar Jar in Fortnite. That is awesome. Go check out his channel, where I am sure he will be doing some play of Fortnite using that Darth Jar Jar so that you can see it. Let's see. Where was I? Just a moment. Here we go. Treves met Merrick that November at a private viewing that took place before Norman opened his shop for the day. Treves later recalled in his 1923 reminiscence that Merrick was the most disgusting specimen of humanity that I had ever seen. At no time had I met with such a degree of or a perverted version of a human being as this lone figure displayed. The viewing lasted no more than 15 minutes, after which Treves returned to work. Later the same day, he sent Tuckett back to the shop to ask if Merrick might be willing to go to the hospital for an examination. Norman and Merrick both agreed to the request. To allow him to travel the short distance without drawing undue attention, Merrick wore a disguise consisting of an oversized black cloak and a brown cap with a Hessian sack covering his face, and he rode in a cab hired by Treves. Although Treves stated that Merrick's outfit on this occasion included the black cloak and brown cap, there is evidence to suggest that Merrick acquired that particular costume a year later while traveling with Sam Roper's fare. If that were the case, Treves was remembering the clothing from a later meeting with Merrick. On examining Merrick at the hospital, Treves observed that he was shy, confused, not a little frightened, and evidently much cowed. At this point, Treves assumed him to be an imbecile. He measured Merrick's head circumference at the enlarged size of 36 inches, his right wrist at 12 inches, and one of his fingers at 5 inches in circumference. He noted that Merrick's skin was covered with papillomata, warty growths, the length of which exuded an unpleasant smell. The subcutaneous tissue appeared to be weakened, causing a loosening of the skin, which in some areas hung away from his body. There were bone deformities in the right arm, both legs, and most conspicuously in his large skull. Despite having had corrective surgery on his mouth in 1882, Merrick's speech remained barely intelligible. His left arm and hand were neither enlarged nor deformed. His penis and scrotum were normal. Apart from the deformities and the lameness in his hip, Treves concluded that Merrick appeared to be in good general health. Norman later recalled that Merrick had visited the hospital 2 or 3 times, and that Treves had given Merrick his calling card during one of those visits. Treves had some photographs taken on one occasion and provided Merrick with a set of copies, which were later added to his autobiographical pamphlet. On the 2nd of December, 1884, Treves presented Merrick at a meeting of the Pathological Society of London in Bloomsbury. Merrick eventually told Norman that he no longer wanted to be examined at the hospital. According to Norman, he said he was stripped naked and felt like an animal in a cattle market. During this period in Victorian Britain, tastes were changing in regards to freak shows, freak show exhibitions like Norman's, which were becoming a cause for public concern on the grounds of decency and because of the disruption caused by crowds gathering outside of them. Shortly after Merrick's last examination with Treves, the police closed down Norman's shop on Whitechapel Road, and Merrick's Leicester managers withdrew him from Norman's charge. In 1885, Merrick went on the road with Sam Roper's traveling fair. He befriended 2 other performers known as Roper's Midgets, Bertram Dooley and Harry Bramley, who occasionally defended Merrick from public harassment. As the dampening of public enthusiasm, real quick, let me real quick, say hi to the Tired Midnight blogger, Curtis Selby. He says, good afternoon. Driving, but wanted to listen and say hi. Well, I thank you so much for stopping in to listen. As the dampening of public enthusiasm for freak shows and human oddities continued, the police and magistrates became increasingly vigilant in closing down shops. Merrick remained a horrifying spectacle for the viewers, but Roper grew nervous about the negative attention that he was drawing from local authorities. Merrick's group of managers decided he should go on a tour on tour in continental Europe, with the hope that the authorities there would be more lenient. His management was assumed by an unknown man, possibly named Ferrari, and they left for the continent. Merrick was no more successful in continental Europe than he had been in Britain, and similar action was taken by the authorities to move him out of their jurisdiction. In Brussels, Merrick was deserted by his new manager, who stole his 50 pounds, equivalent to 6,900 pounds in 2023. Abandoned and penniless, Merrick made his way made his way by train to Ostend, where he attempted to board a ferry for Dover but was refused passage. He traveled to Antwerp and was able to board a ship bound for Harwich in Essex. From there, he traveled by train to London and arrived in Liverpool Street Station. Merrick reached London on the 24th of June, 1886, safely back in his own country, but with nowhere to go. He was not eligible to enter a workhouse in London for more than one night. The only place that would accept him was the Leicester Union Workhouse, where he had earlier been a permanent resident, but Leicester was 98 miles away. He approached strangers for help, but his speech was unintelligible and his appearance repugnant to passers-by. After drawing a crowd of curious onlookers, Merrick was helped by a policeman into an empty waiting room, where he huddled in a corner, exhausted. Unable to make himself understood, his only identifying possession was Treves' calling card. Treves' calling card. The police contacted Treves, who went to the train station and, on recognizing Merrick, took him in a hansom cab to the London hospital. Merrick was admitted for bronchitis, washed, fed, and then put to bed in a small isolation room in the hospital's attic. While Merrick admitted to the hospital, Treves now had time to conduct a more thorough examination. He discovered that Merrick's physical condition had deteriorated over the previous 2 years and that he had become impaired by his deformities. Treves also suspected that Merrick had a heart condition and had only a few years to live. Merrick's general health improved over the next 5 months under the care of the hospital staff. Although some nurses were initially upset by his appearance, they were able to overcome this and to take care of him. The problem of Merrick's unpleasant odor was mitigated through frequent bathing, and Treves gradually developed an understanding of his speech. A new set of photographs was taken. Francis Carr Gam, the chairman of the hospital committee, had supported Treves in his decision to admit Merrick, but it was clear by November that long-term care plans were needed. The London hospital was not equipped or staffed to provide care for the incurable, which Merrick clearly was. Cargam contacted other institutions and hospitals more suited to caring for chronic cases, but none would accept Merrick. Gam wrote a letter to the Times printed on 4 December 1886, outlining Merrick's case and asking readers for suggestions. The public response in letters and donations was significant, and the situation was even covered by the British Medical Journal. With the financial backing of many donors, Gom was able to make a convincing case to the committee for keeping Merrick in the hospital. It was decided that he would be allowed to stay there for the remainder of his life. He was moved from the attic to the basement, where he could occupy 2 rooms adjacent to a small courtyard. The room was adapted and furnished to suit Merrick, with a specifically constructed bed and, as Travers instructed, no mirrors. I want to really quickly welcome Booger414. I'm glad to see you here. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Hope you hit subscribe and you stick around. Merrick settled into his new life at the London hospital. Treves visited him daily and spent a couple hours with him every Sunday. Now that Merrick had found someone who understood his speech, he was delighted to carry on long conversations with the doctor. Treves and Merrick built a friendly relationship, although Merrick never completely confided in him. He told Treves that he was an only child, and Treves had the impression that his mother, whose picture Merrick always carried with him, had abandoned him as a baby. Merrick was also reluctant to talk about his exhibition days, although he expressed gratitude towards his former manager. It did not take Treves long to realize that, contrary to his initial impression, Merrick was not intellectually impaired. At this point, I'd like to point out that obviously, for the sake of film, the movie did truncate a lot of things. He was not terribly mistreated by the showman that took him around, with the exception of the one in Europe who robbed him of his life savings. The beatings that he received were actually from his father, not from his previous manager. I do believe, though, that these things are done to truncate the story to a 2-hour running time, and so many of the events in his life and the individuals in his life became composite characters. Treves observed that Merrick was very sensitive and showed his emotions easily. At times, Merrick was bored and lonely and demonstrated signs of depression. He had spent his entire adult life segregated from women, first in the workhouse and then as an exhibit. The women he met were either disgusted or frightened by his appearance. His opinions about women were derived from his memories of his mother and what he read in books. Treves decided that Merrick would like to be introduced to a woman, and it would help him feel normal. The doctor arranged for a friend of his named Mrs. Layla Mautrin, a young and pretty widow, to visit Merrick. She agreed, and with fair warning about his appearance, she went to his rooms for an introduction. The meeting was short, as Merrick quickly became overcome with emotion. He later told Treves that Mautrin had been the first woman ever to smile at him and the first to shake his hand. She kept in contact with him, and a letter written by Merrick to her, thanking her for the gift of a book and a brace of grouse, is the only surviving letter written by Merrick. You know, I actually have that up, and I can share that with you right now. That would be, give me just a second, share. Let me go to screen share. There we go. And the letter reads, okay, so the only known surviving letter from Joseph Merrick, known as the Elephant Man, has gone on display. The letter was written to a young widow called Layla Mautrin, who was said to have been the first woman to smile at him and shake his hand. They kept in touch, and in the letter, he thanks her for some grouse and a book. It is on show at the Record Office of Lancashire and Rutland in his home city of Leicester to mark the 70th anniversary. Dear Miss Mautrin, many thanks indeed for the grouse and the book you so kindly sent me. The grouse were splendid. I saw Mr. Treves on Sunday. He said I was to give his best respect to you. With much gratitude, I am yours truly, Joseph Merrick, London Hospital, Whitechapel. So there you go. I remember the movie a bit as a kid, but I also remember a televised play done without much makeup that I think was on PBS. Actually, I believe, give me just a second. This is worth looking up. That was from, I believe it was a TV film. It was the 1982 TV production starring Philip Anglem and Kevin Conway. And the full play is available right here. It appeared on ABC January 4th of 1982. Let me grab this, share. There you go. I would encourage anyone to check out this play. It is incredible. Yes. And that play has continued to circulate, not just this performance. A touring group has been doing it for almost uninterrupted since then. Most recently, I know of Bradley Cooper having played the role of Merrick off Broadway. It is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So let me get back to where I was. Give me just a second. Here we go. He met other women during his life at the hospital, and appeared taken with them all. Treves believed that Merrick's hope was to one day live as at an institution for the blind, where he might meet a woman who could not see his deformities. Merrick wanted to know about the real world and questioned Treves on a number of topics. On one occasion, he expresses a desire to see inside what he considered the real, a real house, and Treves obliged, taking him to visit his Wimpole Street townhouse to meet his wife. At the hospital, actually, I should pause right there. In the description below, I link to a scene from last night's film. I think it's the best scene in the entire film that depicts that exact scene at the Wimpole Street townhouse meeting Treves' wife. At the hospital, Merrick spent his days reading and constructing models of buildings out of card. That's another thing that I actually have to show you here. From the film, you'll recall that, give me just a second here. Let me find it in my notes. Here it is. Share this again. There we go. So Merrick built a card church as a replica of the Maze Cathedral. This is the actual model of the church constructed by Joseph Merrick. It is different from the model that appears in the film, That model was based on St. Philip's Church, adjacent to the Royal London Hospital. I don't know how clearly you can see the details here, but I do have to point out that this was unlike the film depicted. It was not constructed from scratch. This was essentially a card kit. These were mass produced at the time to be assembled by children. But do keep in mind that this model was constructed by a man who only had use of one hand. That was all done with one hand. So that should take nothing away from him. This is an excellent point. You're absolutely right. The doctor who played Treves in the stage play, the ABC televised stage play, was the same one who played Kailash the Unforgettable in Star Trek The Next Generation. You're absolutely right. That is very, very true. So anyway, let us go back to the narrative. Not that you want to see my face any bigger than it actually is, but there you are. At the hospital, Merrick spent his days reading and constructing building models out of card. He entertained visits from Treves and his house surgeons. He rose each day in the afternoon and would leave his room to walk in the small adjacent courtyard after dark. As a result of Cargam's letters to the Times, Merrick's case attracted the notice of London's high society. One person who took a keen interest was actress Madge Kendall. Although she probably never met him in person, she was responsible for raising funds and public sympathy for Merrick. She sent him photographs of herself and employed a basket weaver to go to his room and teach him the craft. Other people of high society did visit him, however, bringing gifts of photographs and books. He reciprocated with letters and handmade gifts of card models and baskets. Merrick enjoyed these visits and became confident enough to converse with people who passed his windows. A young man, Charles Taylor, the son of an engineer responsible for modifying Merrick's room, spent time with him, sometimes playing the violin. Occasionally, Merrick grew bold enough to leave his small living quarters and explore the hospital. When discovered, he was always hurried back to his quarters by the nurses, who feared he might frighten the patients. On the 21st of May, 1887, 2 new buildings were completed at the hospital, and the Prince and Princess of Wales came to open them officially. The princess wished to meet Merrick, so after the tour of the hospital, the royal party went to his room for an introduction. Princess Alexandra shook Merrick's hand and sat with him, an experience that left him overjoyed. She gave him a signed photograph of herself, which became a prized possession, and she sent him a Christmas card each year. On at least one occasion, Merrick was able to fulfill a long-held desire to visit the theater. Treves, with the help of Marge Kendall, arranged for him to attend the Christmas pantomime at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. Merrick sat with some nurses concealed in Laney Burdett Coote's private box. According to Treves, Merrick was awed and enthralled, and the spectacle left him speechless, so that if he were spoken to, he took no heed. Merrick talked about the pantomime for weeks afterwards, reliving the story as if it had been real. On 3 occasions, Merrick left the hospital to go on holiday, spending a few weeks at a time in the countryside. By means of elaborate arrangements that allowed him to board a train unseen and have an entire carriage to himself, Merrick traveled to Northamptonshire to stay at Fawsley Hall, the estate of Lady Knightley. He stayed at the gamekeeper's cottage and spent the days walking in the estate woods collecting wildflowers. He befriended a young farm laborer who later recalled Merrick as an interesting and well-educated man. Treves called this the one supreme holiday of Merrick's life, although, in fact, there were 3 such trips. Thank you so much, Joe's Atmosphere, for the drive-by like. Hail last call. Hail to you as well, Joe's Atmosphere. Merrick condition gradually deteriorated during his 4 years at the London hospital. He required a great deal of care from the nursing staff and spent much of his time in bed or sitting in his quarters with diminished energy. His facial deformities continued to grow and his head became more enlarged. He died on the 11th of April, 1890, while sleeping at the age of 27. At around 3 p.m., Travers's house surgeon visited Merrick and found him lying dead across the bed. His body was formally identified by his uncle, Charles Merrick. An inquest was held on the 27th of April by Wayne Edwin Baxter, who had gained notoriety conducting inquests for the Whitechapel murders in 1888. He often said to me, this is by Frederick Treves, he often said to me that he wished that he could lie down and sleep like other people. He must, with some determination, have made this experiment. Thus, it came about that his death was due to the desire that had dominated his life, the pathetic but hopeless desire to be like other people. This rather poetic conjecture on the doctor's part, which in official terms he either recanted or did not promote, is the one put forth in the film. Merrick's death was ruled accidental, and the certified cause of death was asphyxia resulting from the weight of his head as he lay down. After performing an autopsy, however, Treves determined that Merrick had died from a dislocated neck, which likely severed his vertebral arteries. Knowing that Merrick had always slept sitting up out of necessity, Treves concluded that Merrick must have made the experiment attempting to sleep by lying down like others. However, most modern doctors suspect that it was rather just the unfortunate accident of falling prone during unconsciousness sleep that caused a more sudden result. Treves took plaster casts of Merrick's head and limbs and dissected the body, taking skin samples and mounting the skeleton. Merrick's soft tissue was buried in the City of London cemetery, except for the skin samples, which were later lost during the Second World War. The skeleton is still included in the pathology collection at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel, which merged with the Medical College of St. Bartholomew's Hospital in 1995 to form the School of Medicine and Dentistry at London's Queen Mary University. Merrick's mounted skeleton is not on public display. His skeletal remains are kept in a glass case in a private room at the university and can be viewed by medical students and professionals by appointment to allow medical students to view and understand the physical deformities resulting from Joseph Merrick's condition. Prior to the rediscovery of his soft tissue grave in 2019, some had contended that since he was a devout Christian, at least Merrick's skeletal remains should be given a Christian burial in his home city of Leicester. However, the university intends to keep his skeleton at the medical school. Yes, we'd mentioned this earlier. Didn't Michael Jackson try to buy the skeleton once? I have heard that as well. I cannot verify it, so I will simply state it as conjecture, unless somebody has some verification. But it was a very popular rumor at the time. But there was no way that the hospital was going to do that. If they were going to part with the remains, they would have gone with the proper Christian burial. But I think the value to medical science was their concern. Again, I did not bring up many of these points during the film last night, because I didn't think it was relevant. We, of course, were focusing on, because Live from Sparkwood and 21 focuses on the work of David Lynch, we were focusing more on the film and his directorial choices. I'm going to have to talk to Deleted Scenes this week. Perhaps he might be willing to give us more time next week to discuss, to do a proper film analysis. We really spent the whole time watching the film, and it did cause us to run over significantly. Who bought Michael Jackson's skeleton? Honestly, that's a great question. I actually don't know anything about what happened to Michael Jackson's remains. I assume he's buried. He may have been buried at Neverland. I don't know. Although I did recently watch a documentary about Neverland, but I don't actually recall what happened to Michael Jackson. That is a fair question, though. Lunchtime for me now. Howdy, Connie Cleary. Oh, good, Curtis. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm gonna start winding this down. What I did want to point out again, as I mentioned earlier, I do link below to a to the scene from the movie that I do consider absolutely one of the strongest. I do encourage you to check that out. It'll just take you about 5 minutes or so. And also, if you'd like to know more about the Elephant Man, I also link to an interesting documentary by Lionheart Filmworks. That's linked below as well. I believe that one was about 40 minutes, but don't hold me to that because I don't recall exactly. And I will probably also link below to that ABC made-for-TV film from, well, not made-for-TV, but televised teleplay from 1982. I'll mark that below. But there we go. And timey-wimey-limey, of course, I always appreciate you being here. Timey-wimey-limey, if you do watch this on the repeat, please forgive my poor attempts at British pronunciation. I have done effective British accents in acting before, but that's only with rehearsed scripts, and I didn't take the time to rehearse before doing today's presentation. So please forgive me for not being limey enough. Does not change my status. I still maintain Anglophile status, though. So I thank everyone. This history is a passion of mine. I have spent a lot of time on late 1800s, early 1900s British history for all the time that Netter and I have done history reenacting and steampunk conventions and all of that sort of thing. If you have any interest in that, let me know. Maybe I'll do a talk about that some other day. but I do hope you enjoyed finding out a little bit more about Joseph Merrick. Joseph, not John. And the reason I care so much is that I think it's very easy to have sympathy for the so-called Elephant Man, but I think we should also remember that real people, regardless of their status, their history, their condition, deserve respect, whether alive or dead. And it bothers me when the entertainment industry takes liberties with people's real lives. I think many of you that have been around a while know I rail against the movie Titanic because of the way it portrays the first officer. It literally slanders him, or libels him. J. Jonah Jameson, if you could correct me on which that is, libel or slander. I always forget. But I suppose it could be both, because one is a teleplay and, it was written as a script. So, I mean, either way. He was a real man with family surviving today. And to besmirch his character does disservice to him and to his family. And I can't abide that. And I feel that so many historical depictions do exactly that. And when I hear of directors that have who was the dingbat that just recently did the Napoleon film and said, well, how do you know? Were you there? I'll never see another one of his films. Please understand, I am not casting aspersions at David Lynch. First, although David Lynch is listed as a writer for the film, he is a tertiary writer, so I don't believe he actually contributed to the script. I believe he is given writing credits because of directing decisions. Probably, in my speculation, the addition of the dream sequences, which obviously poetic license. There's, nothing true or false about that. It just is. And as I also mentioned before, this truncation and amalgamation of historic characters, I would certainly give a great deal more latitude to. I don't see anything terribly egregious in this film, other than, as I said, getting the name wrong. And I think that's an honest mistake. That was not an editorial decision. And the rearranging of some of the order of some of the events of his life, the embellishment of some of the meetings that he had or didn't have with people, not so huge as to truly detract from the history. And as I mentioned yesterday, the actor was about 40 years old when he played the role of a man who died before he reached 30. Not that matters. You could not tell the age of the actor through the makeup that he wore, but I do want to underscore how young Joseph Merrick was when he died. His life was very short, but I do believe very inspirational. And I think that that deserves celebration. Anyway, I thank you all so much for coming in and staying just a little bit late with me on this particular liquid lunch. I would have, if I had thought of it in time, I was planning to dress in my entire period appropriate suit and a bowler hat, but did not have the time. And I would have been drinking absinthe today, other than my standard fare. But maybe if you want me to talk about my time doing history reenacting and steampunk for fun, let me know, and maybe I will do that. Anyway, I thank you all so much. I hope you can join me any and every weekday at noon Central, 1 Eastern for Liquid Lunch. Next up for me is Thursday premiere on Netter's Network as we interview Charlotte Nightstar, the werewolf. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that my comments hadn't been advancing, so I haven't seen what you all were saying. Thank you for setting me straight. Of course, it would take a Brit to explain the English language to the latecomers. You guys should have copywritten your language. We'd be paying you astronomical amounts in royalties today if you had. Slander is spoken, libel is written. I'm still not certain, though, how that applies to a film, because the film can be thought of as being spoken, but the script is written and therefore libel. So I think maybe both could apply. Depends. That was just like that's just like erasing history, tearing down monuments, renaming things, or so. Yes, history, and the historical story is quite good on its own. That's why something like the Elephant Man, the film, I don't see as terrible. It does a very good job of telling a true historic story. It takes very minor poetic license in that it truncates years down to 2 hours and amalgamates some people. But yeah, there are too many things that I feel reinforce urban legends, wives' tales, rumors, and present them as fact in film. And I just can't abide that. Movies have done this for years. I saw a documentary of Rudy once that said the assistant coach / villain was really a lifelong friend. I know of Rudy, but I never saw the film, and I don't know too much about his life. But yeah, that's the kind of thing I really, really hate. Taking someone who was a lifelong friend and saying, "Oh, we need a villain in this, so let's put that person in his place." Maybe one of these days I'll talk about Brian's song. That might be a good one too. The absolute worst, most egregious example of historical accuracy is Braveheart. Close second is Stone's JFK. It's been a while since I've seen JFK. And there's a lot of things I'm questioning about those events to begin with. It's a little easier for me to forgive something that has so many question marks around it. The whole what really happened and so forth, and who was really involved and so forth. So that one I'll kind of sidestep a bit. But because let's face it, I think everyone knows about the JFK assassination is lies or misinformation anyway. Braveheart, yeah, is pretty bad. Braveheart is pretty bad. I have some issues with the Patriot too. Let's see. Remember Bill Murray as the elephant guy? It was an SNL parody of this movie. I don't remember that. I'll have to see if there's any clips of it out there. That might be interesting. Noah Webster wanted us to have our own language, but all he ended up doing was writing a dictionary. Yes, that's true. And as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Benjamin Franklin wanted to simplify the spelling of words, which that didn't really go anywhere. Which was also parodied in, well, I don't know if it was intentionally parodied, in a Saturday Night Live sketch, The Decabet, the idea of taking the alphabet and applying the decimal system, or the metric system to it. JFK has so many question marks that Oliver Stone lying about what few facts we do know is especially unforgivable. That's a fair point. That is a fair point. F. Oliver Stone for obfuscating an already confusing history further. Yeah, I agree with you. That is fair. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. I hope to see you tomorrow on Liquid Lunch and Thursday on Netters Network for that interview with Charlotte Nightstar, the werewolf. Thank you so much. You all take care. Have a great one. See you on the next one.
Goodbye. Hope to see you again real soon.
So here's to the daylight, the drinks and the fun, our liquid lunch, till the next one comes. With a wink and a smile, we'll be back real soon, chasing that jazz under the high noon.